As we all know, the United States often relies on its strong strength to bully some small countries. Yugoslavia, Iraq, Syria and other countries have all been beaten by the United States. But there is such a country in the world that has been sanctioned by the Western world, led by the United States for more than 40 years but has remained unscathed. This country is Iran. What kind of confidence does Iran have to be able to confront the United States for more than 40 years? In fact, Iran's strength is still relatively strong. Iran's land area is approximately 1.645 million square kilometers. Iran's land area ranks 17th among more than 200 countries and regions in the world. Iran's neighboring country, Iraq, is only about 25% of Iran's size. Iran is the second largest country in the Middle East in terms of land area. But in fact Iran has the broadest strategic depth of all countries in the Middle East. The Iranian Plateau, the highest place in the Middle East, has an average altitude of between 1,000 and 1,500 meters. The Iranian Plateau stretches nearly 2,000 kilometers from the Caspian Sea to Balochistan. The country of Iran is actually a huge natural fortress. Historically, the Arab Empire and the Ottoman Empire both suffered from this terrain during their wars with Iran. Although the weapons and technical conditions of modern warfare are no longer the same as before, the impact of terrain and environment on warfare has not completely disappeared. Iran's plateau terrain may not be able to stop heavily armed modern troops, but it can at least slow down the progress of enemy mechanized troops. This provides Iran with huge buffering strategic depth. In addition, plateau and mountainous areas are also extremely suitable for carrying out ambush warfare and guerrilla warfare. Once a foreign enemy invades, it is easy to fall into the quagmire of war and be unable to extricate itself. The topography of the Iranian plateau is complex and diverse. There are both high-altitude peaks and lower-altitude valleys. The valley area is suitable for the development of agricultural production. The arable land area in Iran exceeds 52 million hectares. This accounts for more than 30% of its land area. Currently, the cultivated area is about 18 million hectares. Among them, about 8.3 million hectares of irrigated farmland are available. Today, Iran has achieved 90% self-sufficiency in food production. Iran's climate is also relatively diverse, but generally not as arid as the Arabian Peninsula. Iran's diverse topography and climate conditions not only gave birth to relatively developed agricultural production in the Middle East, but also shaped Iran's diverse natural scenery. Iran, which developed a settled farming civilization very early, is an ancient civilization in the Middle East. The ancestors of the Iranians created the first empire in human history that spanned 3 continents, Asia, Africa, and Europe. Historically, Iran has maintained a bridge between Eastern and Western civilizations and created a splendid culture. Today, Iran, as a large country with profound cultural heritage in the Middle East, has 24 World Heritage Sites. In addition to its land territory, Iran's biggest advantage in maritime areas is guarding the Strait of Hormuz, an important energy channel. The Persian Gulf in the Middle East has the largest oil reserves in the world, and the Strait of Hormuz is the only outlet from the Persian Gulf to the Indian Ocean. If the Strait of Hormuz is closed, it will have a huge impact on global oil transportation. Iran has 1,830 kilometers of coastline. This puts Iran in a strategic situation in which it can advance, attack, and retreat. It can defend. It can advance by vigorously developing its navy and expanding maritime power. It can block the straits by retreating and force the world to listen to its voice. The top-level design of Iran's regime is a theocratic rule that combines politics and religion. But the impact of religion on the daily lives of grassroots people is not as great as Western countries exaggerate. Iran, which is designed to integrate politics and religion at the top of the regime, is a relatively secular country in civil life compared to other Middle Eastern countries. Iran has a constitution and an elected government, and it also has its own political party activities. Of course, there may be some extreme ethno-religious people in any country, But in fact, Iran is one of the safest and friendliest countries in the Middle East in terms of security and culture. Iran is not only better than other Middle Eastern countries in terms of social security, but also more open in terms of social customs than other Middle Eastern countries. Iranians are not as sensitive and shy about contact with the outside world as other Islamic countries. Iran is gradually strengthening cooperation with China during the advancement of the Belt and Road Initiative. Iran is politically isolated by Western countries, but ordinary Iranians do not reject Western culture. In fact, Iranian society as a whole presents an open and vibrant state. Most of the current Iranian young people have a strong thirst for knowledge. They are eager to understand both Eastern and Western cultures. At the same time, all ethnic groups and sects in Iran can live in harmony. Iran is a country dominated by Persians, who believe in Shias, but Iran fully respects ethnic minorities such as Azerbaijanis, Armenians, and Jews in the country. It is the harmonious coexistence between domestic ethnic sects that ensures that Iran does not experience frequent unrest like other Middle Eastern countries. This relatively stable domestic environment has also created a good situation for Iran's national development. Although Iran has long been subject to sanctions from Western countries led by the United States, Iran is by no means a poor and war-torn country. Iran is the world's fourth largest oil producer and OPEC's second largest oil exporter. As of the end of 2016, Iran's proven oil reserves accounted for approximately 10% of global oil resources. All foreign exchange earnings have made Iran the seventh largest economy in Asia after China, Japan, India, South Korea, Indonesia, and Saudi Arabia. In addition to its rich oil resources, Iran's natural gas reserves also rank second in the world. In addition, Iran is also rich in mineral resources such as gold, copper, lead, zinc, chromium, iron, coal, tin, manganese, and aluminum. Iran, which has been subject to Western sanctions for a long time, needs to be self-reliant for many things, so Iran's comprehensive production capacity is relatively strong. At present, Iran has made achievements in basic industries and some important scientific research fields. As early as 2002, there were about 150,000 Iranians working in the information technology industry. At that time, there were 1,200 registered information technology companies in Iran. By 2008, Iran's software exports had reached $50 billion. Also in 2008, Iran successfully launched the Messenger rocket and sent a homemade satellite named Hope into space. In 2010, Iran became the 12th largest automobile producer in the world. In recent years, Iran has made remarkable achievements in science and technology, medical care, aerospace, national defense and heavy industry. Iran was once ranked 38th in the global industrial list by The Economist magazine. It can be said that Iran is a country that has rapidly industrialized under the strong sanctions imposed by Western countries led by the United States. Iran's steel production currently ranks 10th in the world. Iran's population is approximately 8.55 million. This ranks 18th among nearly 200 countries in the world. Iran's armed forces include a total active force of about 1.27 million people composed of the army, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and the security forces, as well as about 11 million militiamen. In a wartime state, Iran can quickly mobilize more than 20 million troops. The Iranian army has approximately 1,400 main battle tanks, nearly 100 armored reconnaissance vehicles, thousands of infantry combat vehicles and armored personnel carriers, 2,000 towed artillery pieces, and 300 self-propelled artillery pieces. The number of tanks owned by the Iranian army ranks among the top 10 in the world. The Iranian Air Force has about 20 F-14A fighter jets and more than 20 MiG-29A fighter jets. In addition, Iran has close to 200 F-4, F-5, Mirage F-1, J-7 and other fighter jets. Iran can also be considered a naval power in the Gulf region. On January 21, 2023, the Iranian military announced that the 86th Fleet of the Iranian Navy has arrived on the coast of the Americas and will anchor in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil in the next few days. Except for a few major military powers, there are not many countries in the world that can possess ocean-going naval fleets. Being able to sneak out to Latin America, which is regarded as the backyard of the United States under the blockade of the United States, is enough to prove that the Iranian Navy's ocean navigation capabilities are still good. After all, going from the Persian Gulf to the Indian Ocean, and then across the Pacific to the coast of America, is almost equivalent to crossing half the world. Completing such a voyage is not an easy task even for a naval power like the United States. Completing such a mission is a considerable test for the quality of officers and soldiers, logistical supplies, and intelligence support. The fact that the Iranian Navy can withstand such a test proves its strength to a certain extent. If the voyage to the Americas proves Iran's naval strength, then the ability to independently launch artificial satellites is enough to prove Iran's level in ballistic missiles. Iran's Meteor and Dawn series liquid rockets and Mudrock series solid rockets have a range ranging from 300 kilometers to 2,500 kilometers. Iran is also the only country in the Middle East that can completely independently develop surveillance and combat drones. Some of the drones used by the Russian army on the Ukrainian battlefield came from Iran. Iran's missiles and drones are sufficient to cover the Middle East and have strong long-range combat capabilities. Since the Islamic Revolution overthrew the Pahlavi dynasty in 1979, Iran has been subject to sanctions from the Western world led by the United States. But sanctions did not bring down Iran when Iraq, Syria, Yemen, and other Middle Easts were plunged into war. Iran seemed relatively stable. Iran maintains a rare unity among various ethnic groups and sects. The stability of the political situation has also laid a good foundation for the development of economy, science and technology, and national defense. At present, Iran ranks high in the Middle East, regardless of its land area, population, cultural heritage, economic strength, and military strength. This may be the reason why Iran has been able to challenge the United States for more than 40 years. Especially in recent years, the geopolitical situation faced by Iran has gradually improved. Most countries in the Middle East are dominated by Arabs and believe in Sunni Islam, but Iran is a country dominated by Persians and believe in Shiite Islam. Because of this ethno-sectarian reason, Iran has long been excluded in the geopolitical structure of the Middle East. Iran's neighbor, Iraq, is also a country dominated by Shiites, but it was Sunnis who held power during Saddam's era. At that time, Iraq and Iran were engaged in an 8-year-long Iran-Iraq war. After the overthrow of Saddam Hussein's government, the Shiites, who had a demographic advantage in the general election, came to power. Relations between Iran and Iraq took this opportunity to begin to heat up. The Arab Spring color revolution that originated in Tunisia at the end of 2010 swept many countries. Iran took advantage of the chaos in the Middle East to export sheer revolutionary ideas. Iran provided financial, weapons and equipment support to Lebanese Hezbollah and the Syrian government forces, and also established military bases in Syria. Such a strategic corridor composed of Shiite countries has taken shape. In 2011, the United States began withdrawing troops from Iran's western neighbor, Iraq. The United States will withdraw its troops from Afghanistan, Iran's eastern neighbor, in 2021. Pakistan, its neighbor to the southeast, is mainly restrained by India. Iran's northeastern neighbor Turkmenistan, as a neutral country, is unwilling to intervene in the geopolitical game between the United States, Russia, and Iran. So far, the geopolitical environment faced by Iran has ushered in an unprecedented improvement. Today, Iran, as the leader of the Shiite alliance, has received support from the Assad regime in Syria, Iraqi Shiite organizations, Hamas, and Lebanese Hezbollah in the geopolitical game in the Middle East.